The night was quiet, the kind of uneasy calm that only comes before history turns. A single aircraft limped toward the carrier deck, its skin torn by cannon fire, its left wheel barely holding oil streaking down its barrel-shaped fuselage. No one watching that silhouette would have called it elegant. Yet this battered TBF Avenger, this overcomplicated, overbuilt torpedo bomber, was still in the fight. Moments like this define the strange destiny of the Grumman Avenger, a machine critics once dismissed as too heavy, too complex, too ambitious for carrier warfare. But in the brutal arena of World War II naval aviation, where a pilot's life often hung on the thickness of a bulkhead or the integrity of a fuel tank, complexity could be salvation. And this unlikely aircraft would go on to earn the highest kill ratio of any U.S. aircraft measured in warships sent to the bottom. How did an ungainly machine born from frantic engineering and impossible requirements become the deadliest ship killer of the war? How did a design mocked as a pregnant turkey turn into the backbone of victories from Midway to Leyte Gulf? To understand the answer, we must go back to the moment the Navy realized its torpedo bombers were already obsolete and demanded something no one had ever built before. The story of the TBF Avenger begins not with triumph, but with anxiety and unease spreading through the U.S. Navy long before the Pacific ignited. By 1939, the Douglas TBD Devastator, once the pride of American carriers, was already a relic. Aviation was evolving faster than doctrine, and the Navy realized its frontline torpedo bomber would not survive the war everyone feared was coming. What they demanded next bordered on fantasy. They wanted an aircraft that could outrun fighters, carry a full-size Mark 13 torpedo inside an enclosed bomb bay, fly 1,000 miles, protect a 3-man crew with armor, seal its fuel tanks against enemy fire, and mount an electrically powered turret, something no World War II naval aviation program had successfully integrated. It was a blueprint for contradictions lightweight but armored fast, but burdened by equipment compact enough for a carrier yet large enough to hold a torpedo nearly the length of a small car. 13 manufacturers tried. Most quietly stepped back. 2 remained. Vought offered a sleek, graceful prototype that impressed evaluators at first glance. Grumman, by contrast, submitted a design that looked inflated, swollen, like a wildcat stretched beyond reason. Yet, this awkward machine destined to become the Grumman Avenger had an advantage hidden beneath its strange proportions room for every system the Navy insisted on, and the structural strength to survive whatever war would throw at it. But Grumman's engineers paid dearly for this ambition. Robert Hall and his team wrestled with the massive internal bay, which had to swallow torpedoes, mines, or 400-500-pound bombs without compromising the airframe's integrity. The electric turret, faster and more reliable than hydraulic predecessors, required wiring motors and redundancy that pushed weight past acceptable limits. And then there was the wing folding problem. Carrier decks were unforgiving. Space was life. Grumman needed a wing that could collapse neatly without weakening the aircraft. Leroy Grumman solved it with a pink eraser and 2 paper clips demonstrating the compound angle stow wing that folded up and back simultaneously. It was improvised brilliance, yet brilliance came with a price. The mechanism demanded hydraulic lines locking joints reinforcement. More weight, more complexity. More reasons critics believed this torpedo bomber would fail before it ever reached combat. Still, the world was changing faster than committee opinions. Europe was burning. The Pacific was under threat. The Navy, desperate for a new weapon, ordered hundreds of TBF Avengers months before the prototype even flew. And when that prototype finally took to the air, the aircraft felt heavy, unrefined, almost stubborn. But something about it worked. The systems held, the structure held. The promise buried beneath steel and skepticism remained intact. Then came the fire. The first prototype was lost in a blaze after an engine failure during testing. Critics pounced, but Grumman did not pause. War was now inevitable, and there was no turning back. The team pushed forward, driven by urgency and fear. If their creation failed, young crews would pay the price. And soon enough, those young men would be flying into the storm at Midway. When the TBF Avenger first saw combat at Midway, its baptism was brutal. 5 of 6 aircraft were lost. One crawled home so badly damaged, it seemed impossible it had ever flown. Yet the lessons were unmistakable. This overbuilt machine could soak up punishment no other torpedo bomber could endure. And in the months that followed, the Avenger would begin to show what it could truly do. As American forces pushed across the Pacific, the Grumman Avenger became a constant presence above every major operation. At the Battle of the Eastern Solomons, Avengers from Saratoga and Enterprise coordinated a torpedo strike that sent the light carrier Ryujo beneath the waves. The crews were still inexperienced, the tactics still evolving, but the aircraft's strengths, range, stability, internal payload were already reshaping how carrier task forces fought. And at Guadalcanal, Avengers finished off the crippled battleship Hiei, proving they could kill even armored capital ships once thought immune to air attack. But the Avengers' most unlikely transformation came far from the Pacific headlines. In the Atlantic, German U-boats were sinking Allied shipping faster than it could be replaced. Escort carriers, small and lightly defended, needed an aircraft that could patrol vast distances and carry an array of weapons. The TBF Avenger was the perfect fit. Equipped with ASB radar, depth charges, rockets, and the secret Mark 24 acoustic torpedo Avengers hunted submarines with ruthless precision. Their method was simple but devastating: force the U-boat to dive track it with sonobuoys, then hand it off to destroyers or finish the attack themselves. By war's end, Avengers had helped sink dozens of U-boats, more than any other aircraft in Allied service. Production surged as the aircraft proved itself indispensable. General Motors' Eastern Aircraft Division built thousands of TBMs, turning automobile assembly lines into one of the beating hearts of American wartime industry. It was a triumph of scale: nearly 10,000 Avengers, built in barely 3 years, a feat of manufacturing that ensured every carrier fleet or escort had the aircraft it needed. Then came 1944 in the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. While American fighters swept Japanese aircraft from the sky, the Avengers played the long game. After the main battle carriers launched Avengers on a desperate long-range strike, the mission Beyond Darkness. These aircraft chased the retreating Japanese fleet at extreme range, hitting the light carrier Hio in fading light. Many Avengers ran out of fuel, returning home ditching in the Black Pacific. Yet the mission proved again range endurance and resilience were the Avengers' signature advantages in World War II naval aviation. And then at Leyte Gulf, the Avenger reached its symbolic peak. At Samar escort carriers and destroyers of Taffy, 3 faced the most powerful surface fleet Japan had sent to sea since Midway. Many Avengers carried no torpedoes at all, loaded instead with small bombs for ground support. Still, they attacked battleships and heavy cruisers in repeated passes, some making dry runs just to distract gunners. Their courage, combined with relentless harassment from every angle, convinced Admiral Kurita he was facing a full-sized carrier group. He retreated. Soon after, the TBF Avenger struck the final blows against the super-battleships Musashi and Yamato, launching torpedoes from multiple directions, overwhelming defenses designed for a different era. The aircraft, mocked as overcomplicated, had now helped erase the battleship from naval supremacy and was well on its way to earning the highest kill ratio of any U.S. aircraft. By late 1944, the great surface duels of the Pacific were fading. Japanese battleships rarely risked leaving port, and the era in which a torpedo bomber could decide the fate of fleets was nearing its end. Yet this shift did not diminish the TBF Avenger. Instead, it revealed the deeper truth behind the aircraft's design versatility was its hidden strength. With fewer targets at sea, the Grumman Avenger transitioned into the most unglamorous but essential missions of the war. Its cavernous bomb bay, originally built to cradle a Mark 13 torpedo, now carried bombs, rockets, mixed ordnance, and sometimes even supplies or stretchers. Avengers flew low over beaches, softening defenses ahead of landings from Peleliu to Okinawa. They skip-bombed warehouses, struck artillery positions, cratered airfields, and provided the close air support that ground forces depended on. These missions lacked the dramatic arc of sinking a battleship, but they carried the steady weight of necessity. The Avenger did them all without complaint. It also did the quiet work of survival. Downed pilots over the Pacific owed their lives to Avenger crews who circled for hours, searching a horizon that swallowed men whole. The same aircraft flew photo reconnaissance, mine-laying operations, nighttime radar-guided strikes, and long-haul deliveries to isolated garrisons. Every time the war demanded a new role, the Avenger absorbed it, another echo of why this over-engineered machine would one day be linked to the highest kill ratio of any U.S. aircraft. But war also exposed the limits of even the toughest design. The human cost never disappeared. The Avenger could endure extraordinary punishment, but it could not make its crews invulnerable. Approximately 2,000 American lives were lost while flying the aircraft. The number sharpened when given a name. One of those names was George Herbert Walker Bush. At 19, flying a TBM Avenger over Chichijima, he pressed his attack even as flames filled the cockpit. His two crewmen never made it out. Bush drifted for hours in an inflatable raft until the submarine USS Finback surfaced beside him. The Avenger had held together long enough for him to escape, but not long enough to save his crew, an enduring reminder that survivability comes with both mercy and grief. The statistics underscore both sides of the story. Nearly 10,000 Avengers built, over 46,000 combat sorties, only 729 combat losses, an astonishing 1.58% loss rate, unmatched by any other American torpedo bomber of the war. The ruggedness that brought pilots home became a generational asset, preserving experience and saving lives that might have been lost in lesser aircraft. Yet, to understand the Avenger's true significance, one must look at its peers. The Japanese Nakajima B-5N Deadly at Pearl Harbor lacked armor and self-sealing tanks obsolete by 1943. The British Swordfish survived only in limited theaters. The Devastator was devastated at Midway. Even the SB-2C Helldiver, another complex design, struggled with reliability. Against this backdrop, the TBF Avenger stands apart complexity, not as flaw, but as philosophy. More wiring, more structure, more redundancy, all crafted so that crews could live to fly again. And it was this philosophy, born of steel and fear and urgency, that prepared the Avenger for its life beyond the last great battleship it helped send beneath the sea. To understand the full weight of the TBF Avenger's legacy, we must step back from the smoke of individual battles and look at the world it helped reshape. In the American perspective, the Avenger is more than a successful torpedo bomber. It is a testament to a nation's ability to transform industrial might into strategic advantage. At the height of the war, General Motors converted automobile plants into aircraft factories almost overnight. Workers who once built Chevrolets now assembled Avengers on lines running 3 shifts without pause. This fusion of engineering ambition and industrial momentum became one of the most powerful weapons in the American arsenal. Globally, the Avenger symbolized something even larger: the irreversible shift from battleship supremacy to the age of World War II naval aviation. The aircraft's victories, from U-boats in the Atlantic to super-battleships in the Pacific, demonstrated that air power, not armor plate, would decide the future of warfare at sea. When Musashi and Yamato sank beneath torpedo wakes and bomb strikes, the world saw not merely the collapse of Japanese naval power, but the end of an era in which surface guns ruled the ocean. For America, these outcomes carried profound strategic lessons. The first was survivability. Investment in redundancy armor and robust design saves lives, and saved lives preserve experience. One reason the Grumman Avenger contributed to the highest kill ratio of any U.S. aircraft when measured against the ships it helped destroy. The second was versatility. Wars rarely follow the neat forecasts of planners. Aviation platforms must adapt. The Avenger proved that an aircraft designed for torpedoes could evolve into a submarine hunter, a night striker, a rescue aircraft, or a flying ambulance. Its flexibility shaped future U.S. Navy expectations for multi-role platforms. Internationally, the Avenger's post-war service only amplified these lessons. Canada deployed Avengers across the harsh North Atlantic, where the aircraft's reliability meant survival for crews patrolling in bitter weather. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force operated Avengers for anti-submarine missions well into the 1960s, a striking irony given the aircraft's role in sinking the Imperial Navy's mightiest ships. Smaller navies around the world used the Avenger because despite its size and apparent complexity, it simply worked. All of this reinforces a final truth with global resonance. Technological sophistication is not a burden when it is purposeful. The Avenger's story warns against the seductive simplicity of underbuilding. It shows that sometimes the only way to prepare for an unpredictable world is to engineer margin for damage, for failure, for the unexpected. That philosophy born in war continues to echo in how nations design the systems they depend on today. In the end, the story of the TBF Avenger is not simply the history of a machine, but the story of men who trusted their lives to something that looked at first glance too awkward to survive a storm. The Avenger never inspired the admiration of a sleek fighter or the awe reserved for the great battleships it helped destroy. Yet, when the shooting stopped and the wreckage settled at the bottom of distant seas, it was the Grumman Avenger, the so-called overcomplicated torpedo bomber, that had reshaped the destiny of two oceans. Its numbers remain astonishing even now. Super-Battleships Yamato and Musashi among its victims. Dozens of carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and submarines sunk or crippled more than 1 million tons of enemy shipping sent below the surface. By war's end, it had achieved the highest kill ratio of any U.S. aircraft, not through elegance, but through endurance, versatility, and an almost stubborn instinct to keep flying. Survivors spoke of limping home through smoke and shrapnel instruments, dark fuel leaking the aircraft holding together as if by will alone. Many believed the Avenger saved their lives. Some believed it had a soul. Yet, the Avenger's truest legacy may lie in what it taught. It showed that World War II naval aviation succeeded not only through speed or firepower, but through machines built to protect the people inside them. It proved that complexity, often dismissed as a flaw, is sometimes the most humane form of engineering. And it demonstrated that versatility is the quiet strength that wins long wars, especially when the battlefield shifts faster than doctrine. Today, only a few dozen Avengers remain. Some sit in museums, their wings folded in the same stoic posture they once held on carrier decks. A handful still fly their engines, echoing across air shows carrying the weight of men who never came home. When one of these aircraft passes overhead, its silhouette, wide wings, deep belly-stooped posture reminds us not just of what it destroyed, but of what it preserved. Because beneath the statistics and the tonnage and the victories, the Avenger embodied a simple promise: bring them home. And in thousands of missions under fire from every direction across oceans and continents, it kept that promise. So, as we look back on the TBF Avenger, the most unlikely champion of naval warfare, we might ask ourselves, what do we value more, the elegance of design or the courage it protects? If you have an answer or a lesson this aircraft still teaches us today, share it below. And if you want to continue exploring the stories that shaped our world, from the decks of carriers to the shadows of forgotten battlefields, subscribe and join us for the next chapter of history.